Internet. I'm your host Rebecca Felgate, and today we're back at it again with the Disney, only this time we're talking about the dark origins behind the stories you know and love, the movies that raised you as a child. But guess what? At their very core, some of them are horribly messed up. Coming into number 10, we have Hercules. I should have known. Anything that comes from ancient Greek mythology isn't gonna have a happy ending. In most cases, it isn't even safe for work. In the movie, Hercules is indeed the son of God, and he does indeed fight Hades and win the affections of Megara. He is hailed a hero at Mount Olympus. These things do happen in the origin story, but Hercules is a child of rape. Zeus tricked his mum into sleeping with him. Hercules marries Meg by force, who later ends up going mad and brutally slaughtering all of their children. Rightio then. Coming into number 9, we have The Little Mermaid. Ariel the Little Mermaid was such a great movie. I loved pretending to be a mermaid every time I went to the swimming pool with my mum. I'd always make her pretend to be Ursula the Sea Witch and try and chase me. It would always be fun. I loved The Little Mermaid, but I never actually did think it had a particularly happy ending. Ariel has to give up being a mermaid and has to live among people that aren't her family or friends. They can visit though, so I guess that's cool. In the origin story by the infamous Hans Christian Andersen, who you'll be hearing about lots in this list, things are far worse. Our mate Ariel ends up turning into sea foam, just to paint the ending there for you. In the original, the mermaid is indeed a princess who bargains with a sea witch in exchange for legs so she can meet a human she rescued. The only thing is, in the origin, every time she walks using these legs, she feels excruciating pain, as if she's walking on knives. Throughout the story, her feet bleed regularly. She's told if she doesn't secure the love of the prince, she'll die. She meets the prince, who actually asks her to dance for him, which she does so even though it's total agony and it makes her bleed. How does he repay her? Well, he falls in love with someone else, breaking her heart. Her mermaid sisters do sell their hair to the sea witch for a knife that offers the mermaid a way out. If she kills the prince and drips his blood on her legs, then she can end her pain and become a mermaid again. Sadly for her, she loves him way too much, and instead she chooses to die. Lovely. Coming into number 8, we have The Princess and the Frog. Okay, sure, anything wherein a human and a frog fall in love probably has a dodgy backstory. I think I set myself up for this one. In the very earliest version of The Princess and the Frog King, the curse is broken when the frog is thrown against a wall. In one origin version, his head is chopped off and his skin is burned. Poor frog. Moving on to number 7, we have Cinderella. The good news is that Cinderella and the prince do live happily ever after in the origin story. The bad news is that there is a lot of body mutation going on there. When the prince finds the slipper in the original tale, her sisters try and steal it to make it fit them. But they take far more extreme measures than in the movies. They cut off parts of their feet, one cuts off their toes and the other cuts off their heel. The glass slipper is tarnished with blood. Grim. Coming into number 6, we have Frozen. Frozen is based on good old Hans Christian Andersen's The Snow Queen. Elsa, as we know, has the ability to freeze things using just her hands, and she can be a bit shirty. She likes to keep herself away from others by building an ice castle. She isolates herself. I'm not funny, I don't know why I try. Anyway, originally the Snow Queen bewitches a man called Kai to love her by placing a piece of a troll's mirror in his eye and in his heart. She turns him cruel, she turns his heart to ice, she makes him emotionless, and she makes him reject his previous girlfriend. Devastating. Coming into number 5, we have Pocahontas. Pocahontas is a real character in history, so it's one of the few Disney films actually based on fact. In the movie, Pocahontas finds love with John Smith. In reality, John Smith was a settler who established Jamestown, and when we say established, you can bet there was a lot of violence and bloodshed and land stealing. Pocahontas did rescue John Smith from being murdered by her father, but she was only 11 years old at the time. She did marry Kokum, but he was murdered, leaving her with 2 kids to raise on her own. She was then abused by English settlers, her name was changed to Rebecca, and she was forcibly wed to a tobacco farmer named John Rolfe. She died quite young in her early 20s. Coming into number 4, we have Sleeping Beauty. I loved Sleeping Beauty as a kid. I used to lay down in the middle of the supermarket and pretend I was the Sleeping Beauty and I wouldn't get up until my mum kissed me. It's the kind of kid I was. But the origin story is actually totally messed up. Yeah, Sleeping Beauty is a princess, and yes, she is cursed by an evil witch, but she doesn't prick her finger on a spindle and spinning wheel, she gets poisoned by a flax seed stuck under her nail. She's enshrined and sleeps in a mausoleum, and one day, a much older king from another kingdom finds her. He then rapes her seemingly lifeless corpse and leaves her. He goes back to his wife. She then gives birth, and fairies look after her babies until one day one of her babies sucks the flax out from under her nail and she wakes up. She names her kids Sun and Moon, like the celestial bodies. They are a mystery to her. The rapey and, again, much older king returns to find her awake, and actually, they fall in love. But once again, he has a wife. His wife then orders her chef to cook her husband's kids and kill his mistress, but he manages to kill her first. The king, Sleeping Beauty, Sun and Moon live happily ever after. Shame about all the murder and the rape. Hey. Coming into number 3, we have The Hunchback of Notre Dame. The Hunchback of Notre Dame is based on the tale of Quasimodo, originally created by Victor Hugo, the writer of Les Miserables. In the movie, Quasi falls in love with a gypsy girl and saves her from being executed in a church. In the novel, he fails to save her and watches her as she hangs. Ugh. He then is so upset by her execution, he sits at her graveside until he himself starves to death. Literal death. Has a scary poetic ending as well. Their skeletons are found some years later, and when the finder tries to separate them, they turn to dust. Coming into number 2, we have The Jungle Book. The Jungle Book is already pretty dark when you factor in Mowgli being abandoned by his parents and the whole scary tiger thing, but the origin is even worse. In the origin story, Mowgli kills the tiger Shere Khan and then finds his parents that have actually been captured by a village of farmers. With the help of animals on a rampage, he kills everyone in the village and destroys it all. He razes it to the ground. Mowgli. What a guy. Finally, coming into number 1, we have Mulan. Disney's Mulan was released in 1998, but it's actually based on a Chinese tale, a myth about Fa Mulan or Hu Mulan. In the movie, we know that the title character joins the Chinese army and pretends to be a man in order to fight the Huns. Well, this happens in the origin story too, but things don't end out so well. Mulan loses the war and is captured by the enemy Khan, who tried to make her his sex slave. She escapes, but when she returns home, she finds that her father is actually dead and her mother has remarried. Mulan then decides enough is enough and she kills herself. Honestly, not quite the Disney ending. Oof, guys, blimey, what an adventure. A really scary adventure. Hands up if you're gonna look at Disney differently in the future. Why are all these fairy tales so grim as well? Ooh. Once again, do let me know your favourite Disney movie, if it is still your favourite after this, and now is the time that we read some comments. So I'm gonna be reading some comments from the nursery rhyme Dark Origins, a bit similar to this, and you know what, it ruined a lot of my favourite ditties as a kid. Worryingly, our top comment was from Michael Myers, who said, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. 3, 4, better lock your door. 5, 6, grab your crucifix. 7, 8, better stay up late. 9, 10, never sleep again. Seaheart said, twinkle twinkle little star isn't what you think either. Pretty much every little star is burning out, so by the end of the song, they'll all be dead. Not quite sure how you reach that conclusion, but still.